In this episode of Nightly News Kids Edition, we will be talking about a story that's been in the news this week involving former President Donald Trump and an incident that took place in Pennsylvania. It's a sensitive topic, so you might want to grab a parent or grown-up to watch in case you have questions. Coming up, a kid's guide to conventions, everything you need to know. Then, hot, 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 where is the hottest place in America? We have the answer. Also, making a difference. One boy is helping raise awareness about a disease that impacts many kids and grown-ups, making some favorite foods hurt them.
We had no idea what celiac disease was, what to do about it, and neither did anyone else we knew.
We didn't know anything about celiac disease either. No one in our family had it. Had you ever heard of it before?
No.
No.
Before, I didn't even know what it really was.
His inspiring story just ahead. Plus, King James, All-Star LeBron James and Team USA are getting ready to compete in the Paris Olympics. LeBron James will be here to talk hoops and chasing gold.
You won Olympic gold in 8, you won Olympic gold in 12. You didn't have to do this. Why did you decide to suit up one more time for Team USA?
The Team USA was giving a lot to me, so I feel like, it's an opportunity for me to give back.
And Perfect Pet will mark National Kitten Day.
This is NBC Nightly News Kids Edition.
Welcome back to Nightly News Kids Edition. It's so great to be with you all. I'm Dylan Dreyer, filling in for Lester Holt, who is on assignment this week. We have a terrific lineup ahead, including our pop quiz. And then we're seeing red with our picture of the week. Plus, basketball legend LeBron James will be here to talk about the upcoming Paris Olympics and so much more.
To what do you attribute just the sheer longevity, the amount of years you've been able to play at the level that you've been able to play? How have you been able to do that?
Giving my all to the game, to the craft, and also dedicating my body, understanding that, my body is my temple. To continue to play at a high level, you have to be able to commit to doing the things that I guess some of your peers don't want to do. I want to squeeze as much juice as I can out of my career.
But first, let's begin with one of the stories making headlines. The Republican National Convention is taking place this week in Milwaukee as former President Donald Trump becomes the official Republican presidential nominee. And the Democratic National Convention will take place next month in Chicago. But just what happens at a convention? We thought it might be helpful to give you a brief guide. Lester has the details.
Every 4 years during an election year, the two major political parties, the Democrats and Republicans, each hold a national nominating convention. Thousands of people usually attend these conventions, which traditionally serve as a big introduction to each party's candidate for president.
What happens at a party's convention is they all have a good time, but the centerpiece is the nominee of that party for the presidency comes out on stage, gives a big speech, says what he or she would do if elected president, and that's probably going to be the most widely viewed speech of the entire political season.
In more recent times, the delegates selected from each state have pledged to vote for specific candidates earlier in the year before the convention happens. So by the time of the convention, the party knows who their pick is.
In a year when a new president is chosen, there are presidential primaries, and people vote state by state, who do you want as your party's nominee? And usually someone is overwhelmingly popular early enough so that the convention just basically says, we know who the nominee is going to be, so let's just have a big party.
What else happens at the conventions? Well, there's a lot of talking.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
I'll be an ally of the light, not the darkness. It's time for us, for we the people, to come together.
Goals, or as politicians call them, platforms, are outlined and adopted. This is basically what the party believes in, like, for example, whether grown-ups should make more money, or if there's something they think the country can do differently to make it safer.
At the end of this chapter,
The presidential nominee will also give a speech. This became very popular after President Franklin Roosevelt accepted his party's nomination in 1932. This week, former President Donald Trump became the official Republican presidential nominee at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. He appeared alongside J.D. Vance, who he has chosen as his running mate to be vice president. Meantime, the Democrats will officially decide their party's nominee for president in August at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
For the last 70 years, when a party's convention opens, we usually know who's going to be the presidential nominee. Usually that has been wrapped up in presidential primary elections. This year, Joe Biden overwhelmingly won the presidential primaries, but there is enough disquietude with his candidacy for president that some delegates are saying, why don't we have a real vote on the convention floor of the kind that we really haven't had since 1952?
President Joe Biden told me this week, despite some calls for him to step aside, he is running for re-election.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
Look, 14 million people voted for me to be the nominee in the Democratic Party, okay? I listen to them.
Remember, to become a presidential nominee, a candidate typically has to win a majority of the delegates at the party's convention. And come November, voters will decide in the general presidential election who they want to be president. And kids, even though you have to be 18 years old to vote, you kids can still participate in the process.
I want to encourage you to identify issues that matter to you and conduct research on those issues, to examine primary and secondary sources through a diverse set of lenses. You are indeed a citizen, and you too have a voice, and you have the power to elicit change within your communities and within your society.
Lester, thanks so much for that. Well, as former President Donald Trump becomes the official Republican presidential nominee, there's another story involving Mr. Trump that has also been in the news this week, and it's one you might have heard about. The former president was injured days ago in an incident that was pretty scary. Mr. Trump, who is seeking a second term in office, was speaking at an outdoor campaign rally in Pennsylvania when law enforcement officials say a man shot at him. The former president suffered a minor injury, but thankfully he's doing okay. Look, we know this is a really scary story, and some of the images are very upsetting. So we asked our friend Jennifer Hartstein, a child and family psychologist, to help us sort through some of what you might be feeling. And kids, you may want to grab a parent or grown-up to watch in case you have any questions.
So over the weekend, many kids may now know that the former president, President Trump, was at a political rally, and there was an attempt at taking his life. And there are a lot of questions around it, and I'm sure that you have a lot of questions around it. But all we know is that he was protected and he is safe, despite the fact that there was this attempt on his life, which was scary for everybody there, and I'm sure it could be scary for some of you. The news can make us anxious, and it can really make us worried. And when we aren't hearing all of the stories or all of the stuff, it can be very overwhelming. And then that worry can kind of go with us everywhere. So a couple things we want to think about. Don't look at the news. If you go into the room and your parents are watching the news and you know it makes you nervous, walk away or maybe ask your parents to shut the news off. Some really important things we want to do is we want to think about how we're breathing. When we get nervous, our breathing speeds up or we hold our breath. Never good. So one of the things I like to teach is a really simple breathing technique. You start breathing through your nose like you're smelling a flower or your favorite smell, and then you want to blow out like you're blowing your birthday candles out. So you breathe in through your nose and blow out like you're blowing candles, and that helps slow your system down and helps you feel much more regulated. And if you can, and you're really overwhelmed, sit on the floor. Get yourself on the floor, because the more you can get on the floor, you feel more grounded, your body calms down, and then you can go about your day. It's really important when you're confused to ask people for clarification. So what does that mean? That means go to the people in your life who may have more answers. The truth is sometimes the only answer we have is I don't know, which none of us particularly like. But if we can ask camp counselors, teachers, parents, anybody that you trust for or clarification on something, then that might help us feel calmer. It's normal, and it makes sense to be afraid when you see images or hear the stories or have questions about what happened. I think many adults have a lot of questions and might also be afraid. So I think it's really important not to ignore that and to talk to the people in your life, talk to trusted adults, your parents, aunts and uncles, coaches, anybody that you feel comfortable with about what's making you scared. Ask questions, see what you need, and take in that information that they're giving you back, that at the end of the day, scary things happen less than non-scary things. So we want to remember that more times than not, we are really safe. And we want to try and remember that and remind ourselves of that a lot.
Jennifer Hartstein, thanks so much for your advice and insight. Meantime, parts of the country continue to sizzle with record high temperatures this week. And this brings us to our pop quiz. The question this week, where is the hottest place in the United States? Is it A, Death Valley, California, B, Las Vegas, Nevada, or C, Orlando, Florida? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. Okay, time's up. The answer is A, Death Valley, California. And that's where a world high temperature record of 134 degrees was recorded in July 1913. Wow, that's hot. Well, kids, regardless of where you live, remember, it's important to stay hydrated. All right, now for our picture of the week. We're headed to Rochester, New York, where the Seneca Park Zoo just welcomed a baby red panda. Raji, the red panda, gave birth to her first cub on June 27th. Raji unfortunately abandoned her cub, which is not uncommon for first-time red panda moms. The good news, Raji's baby is thriving with around-the-clock care from the zoo and is gaining weight appropriately during these first critical 30 days. The zoo says it will be another month before staff can confirm the baby's gender. Meantime, the cub can be seen through viewing glass at the zoo's hospital and is doing just fine. Okay, in this week's Spotlight, we're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the Paris Summer Olympics, and a lot of attention will be on Team USA's star-studded men's basketball team. The roster is stacked with future Hall of Famers, including LeBron James. Our good friend Craig Melvin traveled to the team's training camp in Las Vegas recently and spoke with King James.
For many, it's hard to remember a time in basketball before LeBron. From the fresh-faced high school prospect to the dominant force steering 3 different NBA franchises to championship glory. Now, ahead of his 22nd season, LeBron has rejoined Team USA in its quest for gold in Paris. You won Olympic gold in 8, you won Olympic gold in 12. You didn't have to do this. Why did you decide to suit up one more time for Team USA?
The Team USA was giving a lot to me, so I feel like, you know, it's an opportunity for me to give back.
I had the chance to watch the team scrimmage at training camp. On the second day of practice, I was struck by how intense it was.
My feeling yesterday, coaching him for the first time, was, man, this guy goes hard. Every single drill, all out. I knew he was an incredible competitor. I didn't realize how hard he practiced. He's like 20 years into this thing, you know?
This team carefully curated in part by LeBron himself. Is it true that LeBron was actually working the phones, recruiting some of the players on the squad?
You know, we all had dialogue throughout the season, and we thought it'd be pretty special. We were all healthy. We all had an opportunity to get together and you know, and show what we're capable of.
At 39, LeBron becomes the oldest member of the U.S. men's team to ever play in an Olympics. To what do you attribute just the sheer longevity, the amount of years you've been able to play at the level that you've been able to play? How have you been able to do that?
You know, giving my all to the game, to the craft, and also dedicating my body, understanding that, you know, my body is my temple. To continue to play at a high level, you have to be able to commit to doing the things that I guess some of your peers don't want to do. I want to squeeze as much juice as I can out of my career.
For fellow players, having LeBron on the squad is special.
He was the shining star of the future of basketball before he even started high school. He's raised the level of the entire league and has continued to do that. The ultimate champion.
It's just the enthusiasm and the energy he has for the game is just contagious, and the more you're around him as a teammate, you can see why he's considered the best player to ever play.
LeBron just re-signed with the Los Angeles Lakers for a 2-year deal worth more than $100 million. He's earned even more through endorsements and business ventures, reportedly making him one of the first active athletes to be worth more than $1 billion. He's also known for giving back with life-changing donations and projects, especially in his hometown of Akron, Ohio. On the court, LeBron told me his greatest accomplishment will be playing with his son Bronny, who the Lakers drafted this offseason. Being a dad on the court with your son playing next to you, how do you navigate that? How's that dynamic going to work?
It's going to work just like any one other of my teammates. Hold him accountable, and he should hold me accountable when I do things, not right. For me, I probably would hold him at a higher standard because I want him to be great. I want him to be as great as he can be.
As LeBron and Team USA get set to play on the biggest stage in sports, he's mindful of his impact on the game that has given him so much. What kind of game are you leaving behind for Bronny and this new generation of basketball player?
You're only going to get out as much as you put in, so I hope that I'm able to inspire, the next generation to, put the work in as both on the floor, off the floor, commit to the game. There's no shortcuts to being great.
We will certainly be watching Team USA go for the gold. Thanks so much, Craig. And just a programming note, you can catch the Paris Summer Olympics starting on July 26th on NBC and Peacock. Turning to this week's Inspiring Kids series, one boy is raising awareness about a disease that impacts many kids and grown-ups and makes their tummies hurt. And it's one that impacts my family, too.
My son, Calvin, loves to cook and eat. But last year, Calvin was diagnosed with celiac disease, and we discovered some of the foods he loved hurt him.
It was like a sharp pain every day, not a different pain.
People who have celiac disease have trouble digesting something called gluten. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, rye, barley, and some oats. Lots of foods contain gluten, like bread, pasta, and cereals, as well as things you might not expect, like soups and salad dressings. Our story resonated with Jax Barry, who also has celiac. So Jax reached out to us about his journey.
Dear Cal, I admire your courage in sharing your celiac story. I was diagnosed when I started kindergarten in 2018.
Now 11 years old, Jax, with the help of his family, is on a mission to have clearly marked labels on food with gluten, including barley, rye, and oats. Jax has met various senators and even shared his vision with President Biden. Jax and Calvin met virtually, sharing their experiences with each other.
We had no idea what celiac disease was, what to do about it, and neither did anyone else we knew.
We didn't know anything about celiac disease either. No one in our family had it. Had you ever heard of it before?
No.
No.
Before I didn't even know what gluten was.
Some notes to you are that celiac can be really hard at times, but don't let it slow you down.
Jax, that's some really great advice. Thank you. Finally, to a story that caught our eye. Last week marked National Kitten Day, a time to educate people about kittens and adoption. Here's our good friend, Erin McLaughlin.
Animal shelters across the country are facing a big challenge. More animals are coming into shelters, especially during kitten season. The American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or ASPCA, is encouraging the public to make a difference for animals by adopting or fostering those in need.
During kitten season, foster caregivers are especially vital given the uptick in very young kittens in need of attentive and specialized care. When you adopt or foster an animal from a shelter, you make an impact that ripples throughout the shelters nationwide and makes space for more animals in need. The ASPCA has saved more than 23,000 of the most vulnerable kittens in New York City and Los Angeles with the support of foster caregivers, including more than 11,000 kittens helped throughout the ASPCA Kitten Nursery.
The Kitten Nursery supports animal care centers in New York City, with a team dedicated to the care and treatment of neonatal kittens who are often in need of extra special attention. Did you know it's important to keep kittens warm, especially when they're still growing?
Newborn kittens typically receive complete nutrition from their mother's milk for the first 4 weeks of life. In the event that the mother cat is ill or doesn't produce enough milk, or if the kittens are found as orphans, it may be necessary to feed the kittens a commercial milk replacer. If you are fostering kittens, the staff at the shelter can often provide training and guide you through the bottle feeding process.
The ASPCA says kittens under 8 weeks old can be among the most vulnerable and often require around-the-clock attention and bottle feeding as they mature. That's why the support of caregivers is crucial during this time. And once they come of age, they'll be ready to find adoptive homes.
Erin, thanks. Those kittens sure are cute. Well, that's going to do it for us. Parents, just a reminder, if your child has a question about any topic in the news, email a video to us at nightlynewskids@nbcuni.com, and we'll try to answer them in an upcoming episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at Nightly Kids. Thanks so much for watching, and as Lester likes to say, remember, take care of yourself and each other.